Good evening and welcome back to 31 Horror Nights. It's October 11th and tonight's movie is Oddity. I said in my review of Caveat that I was reviewing another Damien McCarthy movie this year, and since he only has two movies, it was obviously going to be this one. Just from the trailer alone, this movie seems very different. The whole movie is about this woman, like an occultist, who is trying to solve the murder of her sister, and she's apparently using her friends on the other side to help her out with that. The setup to her sister's murder kind of reminds me of that urban legend of the man in the back seat. She answers her door, and her door has one of those, windows that opens with a slide, and this guy with a glass eye is asking to be let in, and she says no. And then he's like, no, you're in danger. Someone else is in there with you. And if this follows the same trajectory as that urban legend, there actually is someone in the house with her. There are a lot of haunted or occultic artifacts in this movie, and very briefly, it was brief, but I saw it, there was a rabbit doll that looked very much like the one from Caveat. It might not be the same rabbit, I don't remember the eyes being quite as evil, but that's clearly an homage. This is certainly a very interesting setup. If I've seen another movie with a similar plot line to this, I can't think of it. And while I didn't dislike Caveat, I definitely thought there was room for improvement. So let's see if that improvement I wanted ended up happening. That actually was a huge improvement on Caveat, and also on its own, it was a pretty damn great horror movie. It was unique, it was clever, and it was scary. I'm gonna give Oddity a 9 out of 10. My biggest issue with Caveat mostly boiled down to the lack of focus the story felt like it had, like it was trying to tell two different stories at the same time, but that is not the case with Oddity. Actually, in a lot of ways, Caveat and Oddity are very similar in setup, but this is executed a lot better in my opinion. Oddity also has its own horrifying prop, an answer to the rabbit drum toy from Caveat. It's this, life-sized wooden carving of a man who's, constantly screaming. Or looks like he's constantly screaming. He doesn't actually make a noise at any point in this movie. And while he certainly is creepy, the rabbit prop is a lot more subtle. And speaking of which, I did see that rabbit in this movie again, and it's definitely not the same prop. This one is completely different, and it has cymbals instead of a little drum. But still, obviously, that has to be a reference to Caveat. I also consider myself to be relatively good at spotting when a movie is about to jump scare me, and because of that, I'm relatively desensitized to it, but this movie got me at a few points. It had one scene that, made me jump like that meme of Moist Critical, jumping out of his chair and it's all blurry. That was me. And then that same scene was able to get me again 5 seconds after that. Out of all the movies so far this month, this was the best at getting the fear response out of me. And one thing that I was able to appreciate about this movie is that up until the final frame, it was able to subvert my expectations and keep me guessing. I was kind of on the fence about Damien McCarthy after watching Caveat, but now I am fully on board. This man needs to make more movies. I would recommend it, and now I want to talk about some spoilers. Oddly enough, this movie does have a very similar sort of trajectory to Caveat. You start out thinking it's a haunted house movie, but then it turns into a murder mystery, except the mystery is solved fairly quickly, and the rest of it is just the ramifications of that. And I was right in comparing the sequence of events that led to Danny's murder, which is the murder being solved in this movie, comparing that to the urban legend of the man in the back seat. She, in fact, does not invite the weird man with a glass eye she's never met before into her home, which is the right choice, but unfortunately in this situation he was actually telling the truth. There was an intruder who did kill her. And the way they reveal that is actually pretty clever. At some point during the day, Danny set up a camera to do a time-lapse of, renovating this building. That's where the murder takes place. After her confrontation with the man that has the glass eye, she looks over, sees the camera, and realizes if he actually was telling the truth, the time-lapse would have caught the intruder. So she goes back in this little tent she set up, looks through the pictures, and unfortunately, there is an intruder, who then proceeds to brutally murder her. Danny's twin sister, Darcy, who's a psychic who can see object memories by touching them, finds this out by actually getting her hands on the glass eye of the person they blamed for killing Danny. And that guy is in a state where he definitely won't be needing that eye anymore. But the bulk of the movie actually takes place a year after the murder. And at that point, Danny's widower actually has a new girlfriend who's living with him in that house that they were renovating. Her name is Yana, and I kind of considered her to be like the placeholder protagonist for the second act of the movie. I got the feeling that the movie didn't really want me to like her, but I thought that she was entirely rational and reasonable throughout the whole thing. And she was part of that scene that got me bad. She is looking through that very camera that took that time-lapse shot, and I guess that the intruder, like, deleted that stuff from the camera, because otherwise there is proof of who broke into the house and killed Danny at the crime scene, and they wouldn't have done anything with it. But anyway, there's this short little video of Danny talking about being in the tent inside this old abandoned building they're trying to renovate, and like the camera pans over and she talks to Ted, her husband, about it. It's like a normal video, but then Yana watches it again, and this time when it pans over, it shows the corpse slash ghost of Danny, and that moment legitimately like scared the hell out of me. It actually reminds me a lot of the jump scare in Lake Mungo. Danny's ghost then appears in the room and tells Yana to run, and she doesn't need to be told twice. Once she finds her keys, she is out of there. And that's when we get the first real big twist of this movie. Like, I guess you could count the fact that it was somebody else who killed Danny to be the first twist, but that was nothing compared to this one. Danny's husband, Ted, works at like a mental hospital or like an asylum, and he sent the person who would go on to kill Danny. The murderer was this orderly who worked at the hospital who had these unbelievably aggressive cheekbones. And Ted wanted Danny dead because at that point he was in love with Yana and wanted to leave her but still be able to keep the nice house that they are rebuilding. And that also means in 2 out of 2 of Damian McCarthy's movies, there is a woman who died under mysterious circumstances, and it's revealed that the husband killed her, or had her killed. Darcy, Danny's twin sister with the like occultic powers, does deal with that mewing nurse using that giant wooden carving of a screaming man. And the last part of the movie was actually really clever. At the beginning of the movie, Ted visits Darcy's like weird antique shop, and they talk about this like hotel bell that apparently if you ring it, the ghost of a bellhop appears and kills you. And at the very end of the movie, when Ted goes back to his house thinking he got away with everything, he has a package in the mail, and it is that like bell call. He stated that he doesn't believe in anything supernatural, so I guess out of pride or experimentation, he rings the bell. And then there's this long, extended sequence of him and us as the audience waiting for the bellhop to appear. Throughout the movie up until that point, there have been a few sudden appearance jump scares, and they were always coupled with this loud noise in the score. So I was waiting for that, and I was waiting, and waiting, and waiting. And eventually, a song that you heard at the very beginning of the movie that was sort of like the theme song for the title card starts playing. And I don't know if that was like diegetic in the movie or not, but either way, suddenly it just cuts back to Ted sitting at the table, and right next to him, just out of his field of view, is this dead bellhop. There is no sound in the score either. It is just a cut. And then the movie just ends. You don't know what happens next, but you can guess that it's not pretty. None of the other jump scares were like that in this movie, so the fact that they were able to keep subverting my expectations even up until the last frame was pretty cool. Overall, I enjoyed Oddity. It was actually really cool seeing Oddity after Caveat, because these movies both have a lot of the same ideas. I just feel like Oddity is executed a lot better. Great horror movie, would recommend. Alright, thank you for listening. I'll see you tomorrow.